All right. So we're going to do a part two here.
Records from various cultures in the ancient Near East refer to a blood-stained garment or a bed sheet from the.
Some of you probably didn't get your fill off the last video on this topic. And I feel that I failed to address several things, not the least of which, well, before I get into things, I got to do my intro. Let's see. I'm your friendly neighborhood apostate apostle, J-Wit. I have been sent to bring good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, to open the prison to those who are bound in religion, anti-skeptical thought, and superstition. Well, you guys need to buckle in and get ready. Get ready for the ride today. Just a couple requisite moments here at the beginning. I want to start doing a thing I call gratitude, or a moment of gratitude. And the moment of gratitude right now is dedicated to all of you who stay faithful, who continue to support by liking. If you haven't liked this video yet, just like it now. just take my word for it. It's worth it to like it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and share it. But I won't say most of all, also comment. Even if you just stop by to say, hey, I'm just stopping by, to say I'm stopping by, do that. But this moment of gratitude is especially dedicated to those who regularly comment and who help me to hone the content, because I'm just now getting my footing. I'm trying to get a rhythm going here. I want to move on pretty quickly. I have a couple things I want to cover, but I'm getting my footing, and I appreciate all of the suggestions, all of the critiques, etc. I'm enjoying this whole process of learning how to do this. This is not something I was called to do this. Come on, I was sent out by, I guess we will call him Bishop Brady from Ichabod. He sent me out to start the J-Wit Protection Church Plant, or Nurch Plant, I should say. I gotta remember our new terminology here. Huh? So the gratitude segment is dedicated to those who are leaving comments. Oh man, and David Divad 777. He's a regular supporter over there on Ichabod, and he's followed me over here onto to my own channel, and he's regularly showing just a lot of love. And you guys will have to bear with me as I read through a couple comments here. And I assure you, won't be this way always. But for this gratitude segment, since this is the inaugural gratitude segment, I'm going to read maybe 3 or 4 comments, and because they are very helpful, and they're going to actually part of the way I'm going to steer today's segment is going to be based on a comment that was left. So we'll start off. I'll just start reading from the top here in the comment section, where David Divide says, I like the aggressive approach, like a prosecutor in court of law. Deal with the evidence and objections. Stop beating around the bush. Also, they need to stop fronting like it's actual biological evidence. You might as well roll a dice and say God can make it land on 6 to show her innocence. I thought that was actually, to me, like this. I haven't liked it yet. I just saw, I'm just pulling this thing up here. I'm going to get back to this other comment, because this is going to have a lot to do with what we're going to uncover today. Let's see. Let me make sure I move quickly here. Oh yes, Joe Barnard 4708 says, you continue to give master classes in reasoning, which is why the triune of Ichabod now make up 98.4% of my counter apologist viewing. Thanks a lot, man. I find your approach much preferable to both the scholars and those that argue with callers. That's excellent. I mean, thank you. Thank you. I can't read his entire comment, but I do appreciate that. I'm going to like this while I'm at it. I do appreciate that, Joe. And I recognize you from Ichabod. You're another person who's come along with me to plant this here nurch over here. Thanks a lot, Mike Shannon. You know, you're always encouraging. Let me see. This is actually, he's made a comment. I'm sorry, Jay, not a criticism. No, I didn't take it as a criticism, Mike Shannon. I actually was just saying, yeah, I'm gonna work on trying to make things a little smoother. I'm just working it. So thanks a lot for your comments. Feel free if there are criticism, if it's constructive, I'm welcome and open to it. Of course, Brady from Ichabod showed up and showed some love. Man, it's like I'm reading through everybody's comments, but I'll read this one and then I have to get into the show for today. J Dub says, as a woman, this story in itself, I guess she means in itself, should be enough to prove the Bible God isn't real. How can any female, I should read that properly, how can any female watch this and still serve Yahweh? Every day I get more embarrassed that I ever align my life choices to this trash a book. Great work as always, and an extra thank you for being a male and finding this story important enough to address. Us girls, thank you. And I am so grateful that, I didn't see, okay, yeah, I'm so grateful that you found this to be helpful. Yeah, this was, I would say, you know, they speak of the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. And you best believe the camel that is of grievances I had with various elements within the biblical text was heavy laden with straw. But it was indeed Deuteronomy 22:13 through 20 that broke that camel's back. Right, I got to make sure. Okay. I'm going to move on to my call and burden here. I've been more or less tricked into speaking out by Bishop Brady over there at Ichabod. I, like Paul, who was a tent maker in the text, I have a job, which at times it requires me to travel, but I'll aim on this channel to be relatively consistent. I have resolved to build this channel, and perhaps if YouTube continues to exist after I cease to be, leave it as a resource for future human beings, saving them some of the time and work I had to do in order to eventually leave Christianity in particular and theism in general. That's my goal here. Now, I didn't read one of the comment that led to today's, I guess, part 2 of yesterday's video, which is a comment left by, hopefully I say this correctly, MP44 Drofied, something like that, who very astutely brought the internally contradictory nature of LeBoutillier's argument. LeBoutillier is the pastor who I dealt with yesterday. LeBoutillier's argument to my attention. So this person in their comment, let me read their comment and make sure. This person says he contradicts his own apologetic. This is the MP4 Drofied. I hope I'm saying this right. He contradicts his own apologetic. At 2238, he claims the general use of the practice based on records from various ancient Near East and non-Israelite cultures. Later, he argues that the practice distinguished Israel's sexual purity from the nearby peoples. Can't have it both ways. And I responded to that by saying, good call, mind blown, basically. I actually missed that one trying to call out all the other BS. And so let's get right into that.
Records from various cultures in the ancient Near East.
By the way, in this video, I've spliced exactly what he said. I took what I did in this video is I've spliced it so that the contradictory statements are back to back. So
from various cultures in the ancient Near East refer to a blood-stained garment or a bed sheet from the wedding night as evidence of a woman's virginity back in those days. Purity in sexual matters of sexual fidelity was incredibly important in Israel. It's not important in our culture, but that's because we've gotten away from God's word. But it was very important in Israel, and it was something that would distinguish God's covenant people from the nations around them, because remember, the pagan nations were engaged usually in all kinds of sexual promiscuity, and they did it in the name of worship. Pretty much every young woman would be required for at least a time to be a temple prostitute. And it was considered to be a good thing.
So hopefully you guys are catching it. Let me see if I can take you back to where the splice happens here, right?
Gotten away from God's word. Or a bed sheet from various cultures in the...
Yeah, let's just go all the way back.
From various cultures in the ancient Near East.
Let me stop this. I got to start so you can hear his first words.
Records from various cultures in the ancient Near East.
So there you go. Records from various cultures. Wait, hold on, let me just make sure I get this right.
Records from various cultures in the ancient Near East refer to a blood-stained garment. Okay,
so records from various cultures in the ancient Near East refer to this practice, is what I'm going to summarize everything he's saying after. He's saying the practice of having a virginity proof or a proof sheet, as the text says, it's a proof, right? Or evidence, and a virginity evidence, as he irony-tongued or air quoted in the video that I put up yesterday, right?
Or a bed sheet from the wedding night as evidence of a woman's virginity.
So here he's claiming that various cultures in the region, or basically LeBoutillier, who's this pastor here, appeals to the common practice of using such cloths as proof of virginity within contemporaneous non-Israelite cultures. And then later on, he argues that pretty much every young woman would be required for at least a time to be a temple prostitute. The two cannot be true simultaneously. And that's what the person points out in their comment. So we'll play it a little.
Purity in sexual matters of sexual fidelity was incredibly important in Israel. It's not important in our culture, but that's because we've gotten away from God's word. But it was very important in Israel, and it was something that would distinguish God's covenant people from the nations around them, because remember, the pagan nations were engaged usually in all kinds of sexual promiscuity, and they did it in the name of worship.
You see that? Wow. See this splice, you probably didn't even catch that splice, right? Let's see.
Promiscuity, and they did it in the name.
Let's see.
People from the nations around them, because remember, the pagan nations were engaged usually in all kinds of sexual promiscuity.
You see that? You see that? Thank you so much. I got to remember your name. Hopefully you can tell me how to pronounce your name. MP44 drop feed. Yes, thank you so much. Drop feed. I guess that's what it is. Drop feed. Thank you for pointing that out, because he contradicts himself right away.
They did it in the name of worship. Pretty much every young woman would be required for at least a time to be a temple prostitute.
So he's saying basically every young woman would have been required to be a temple prostitute. Well, how is it that they simultaneously also had a practice of laying down the evidence for the virginity of the young women when they got married? Like, the two can't both be true. And that's just a very astute observation. Let's see, what else do we have here? His use of Joseph and Mary. Mary was supposed to be a virgin. So if this test was in any sense, a true evidence of virginity, it could still have been employed prior to the birth of the child Jesus. And so I'll say that again. Mary was supposed to be a virgin. So if this test was in any way, true evidence of virginity, it could have still been used, because remember, a virgin was supposed to be with child, right? If it wouldn't count after a pregnancy, it would necessarily be excluded as evidence of virginity. So if it proves virginity, and it's a foolproof way to prove virginity, and you would hope it would be a foolproof way, because capital punishment is on the other side of it. So if you couldn't rely on it as a way of proving or having evidence of a person's virginity, then you got a serious problem there. There's a little bit of a conundrum. Hopefully you guys can think on that a little, that even though he tries to introduce Joseph into the story to show how he's being gracious and he doesn't employ it, remember, Joseph didn't do the virginity test with her. But I mean, technically, if she's a virgin, he should have still been able to do it and clear her name and say, well, obviously she's still a virgin, and this has to be a supernatural pregnancy, because as you can see, her hymen was breached and there's blood on this cloth, which proves her virginity. But if that wouldn't count as proof after her pregnancy, then it can't be proof before her pregnancy. You see what I'm saying? That's the nature of my argument. The illustration of Joseph's graciousness relies on the belief that virgins don't get pregnant. You understand what I'm saying? So for them to say that Joseph was being gracious, it is dependent on this belief that virgins don't get pregnant, which is an obvious thing. Obviously, they're saying that this is an anomaly and it's a spiritual. This is a spiritual pregnancy. This is a result of a god basically impregnating a human being, which sounds like something out of Greek mythology. But I think the last thing I will note before I do this quick part 2 of yesterday's video is that Deuteronomy 22:13-21 is what happens when God's attributes of omniscience and immutability are trapped in a Bronze Age time capsule. I'll say that again. Deuteronomy 22:13-21 is what happens when God's attributes of omniscience and immutability are trapped in a Bronze Age time capsule. So I'll have to head out of here quickly this time. This is probably still about 20 minutes, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys who are bearing with me as I kind of polish things off and make this thing something that's worth listening to. But thank you for all your encouraging comments. I'm going to try to get on there and respond to those who've commented. I just wanted to make sure that I added this very important amendment to yesterday's video, because yes, the guy was contradicting himself on the video. All right. Well, that being said, I wish you guys a great weekend.